Hello there folks, and welcome back to another video. In this one we had a little bit more Middle-earth strategy battle game news that came out this week. This is the article over on Warhammer Community, where we got to have a look at a brand new miniature, or pair of miniatures I suppose, coming out for the Lord of the Rings and the War of the Rohirrim time period. We're finally getting to see a miniature for Helm Hammerhand as the King of Rohan rather than the Wraith of the Hornburg, which is the other version that we had previous to this in the Forge World resin, or just the Expert Kit style, as they seem to now refer to it as. So yes, Helm Hammerhand, King of Rohan, one of the greatest kings in the history of Rohan. His heroic deeds written down in legends and song recounted long after his death. His one fault was his temper. Anyone who disrespected him or his family was sure to earn his wrath. Sorry, Frecker. So those familiar with Middle-earth history will know of his anger coupled with his mighty strength. So this now gives you a version of Helm that you can snap up that is based on the version of him from the anime, The War of the Rohirrim. So not quite based on the statue design that we would have seen in The Lord of the Rings at present at Helm's Deep, but instead a take on it from the sort of anime stylings. So obviously you've got the helmet design there as well, the slightly more colourful outfit and armour design that they have for the characters in the anime, and then of course that massive oversized warhammer that he carries as his weapon of choice there. So yes, you get a couple of different options when it comes to the set, as you can see. So if we go over to this one, you obviously get the mounted version and the foot version of Helm Hammerhand. You then have the option to have him with his helmet on or off, which is quite cool. And I would imagine that you can also get a unhelmeted version that would sit on his mounted option there too. I think I'd have him with his helmet on when it comes to the mounted version, and then have it off when he's on foot. I think that works quite nicely because you get that sort of more commanding pose. Yes, he does look like Father Christmas, but then again, you know, he does very much look like that when it comes to the anime as well, so it's not a massive change. One thing I will say is I liked the colorings of the character in the anime because I think it had much more of a natural tone and feel to it. But then when you compare it to the version that they've done, the Heavy Metal team, I guess, have done, or at least the studio painters have done for the Middle-earth version, it's got that same just overly clean look that you get with a lot of the Games Workshop models, which means that sometimes, yes, you get to be able to see all the different elements of the figure and how it all comes together, but it tends to mean that you kind of just get this almost like action figure toy feel to the characters. It would be interesting to see someone who painted him in a slightly more muted tone that would match up with the version of him from the anime and stuff, where it's got a little bit more of that darker feel to it across the board, which I think would be quite cool. But all in all, I'm glad that we're going to be getting a version of Helm Hammerhand as the King of Rohan, horn at the ready, which is quite cool, sword by his side. Be really nice to have him along his sons, which would be really cool. And of course all the rest of the new updated models for the War of the Rohirrim. So you can drop him into your games, have some fun, play out those battles against Wulf before the Siege of Edoras began, and see how that all comes together before he becomes the Wraith of the Hornburg. You will also have noticed I did have a little bit of a look at his profile here. So for those people who are wondering, this is the current profile for Helm Hammerhand. So fight value of 6, so pretty effective, with a shoot value of 4+. He's got strength 5, defense 7, hefty indeed. 3 attacks, 3 wounds, courage of 4, and an intelligence of 5, with 3 might, 3 will, and 3 fate. He has the option to have a mounted armoured horse, if you see, as you can see there, which seems like what you'd go for. And he has the special rules of Burly, Expert Rider, Horse Lord, and Leader for the Rohan Royal Guard, which matches up very nicely indeed. And then he has a couple of 3 active abilities. So he has the Horn of the Hammerhand. Once per game at the start of any move phase, Helm can blow his horn. Until the end of that turn, enemy models within 12 inches of Helm suffer a -1 penalty to courage tests. He also has the rule of the Hammerhand, so Helm never counts as unarmed, which is a nice thematic addition there. And then he also has Into the Fray, where Helm can declare a free heroic act combat each fight phase. However, after he has slain an enemy model, he must always charge an enemy model if possible for the rest of the battle, which is quite cool. So an interesting one that sort of fits in quite nicely with the hot-headedness of the lineage of Rohan, which you then see later, I suppose, with Theodred and his profile later on down the line. So yes, new miniatures coming down the line for the War of the Rohirrim. There's still a few characters that haven't been done. I imagine we're going to see those slightly more fringe characters, I suppose you'd say, in Forge World Resin, as we have seen already in the past for a few of the other characters. But they'll be coming down the pipeline. It also just means now that you've got essentially all of Helm's family, be it him alongside his sons and his daughter, in plastic, so you can drop them into your games and have some fun. Last but not least, though, we also got a look at a first of the journals that they're going to be doing for the Middle-earth strategy battle game and the new edition. This one is the War of the Rohirrim. And you might be thinking to yourself, but we already have loads of War of the Rohirrim stuff. Well, there's even more coming down the pipeline, because this is done in their journal style, which is something that they've also done for the likes of Warhammer the Horus Heresy and also Warhammer Fantasy Battles. And the idea is that this is a softback 48-page supplement that covers the entirety of the War of the Rohirrim in one place. You'll get a campaign that takes place over 11 scenarios, which follow the events of the movie and uses the entire selection of new and existing models for you to put together a couple of armies. So if you've got the War of the Rohirrim box set, the starter set essentially for the newest edition of the game, and you want to take those characters even further and introduce some more of the characters that you might have in your collection sort of sitting around, then this is a great way for you to dive in and play through those events in a narrative sense, which is quite cool. I also like that they've decided to throw in some extra bits and pieces for the hobby side of things. So there's ways to build a ruined Rohan house and Hill Tribe encampment, which is nice to see. Something that I always quite liked about the old Middle-earth strategy battle game magazines and also the old rulebooks for the initial release of the 3 movies. So the ones for the Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King were all packed full of hobby advice, which was quite cool. So you got that in there as well, alongside painting guides of how to paint your Warriors of Rohan and your Hill Tribesmen. So if you're like me and you still haven't actually put any paint on your Warriors of Rohan or Hill Tribesmen, this might be a good opportunity for you to dive in and follow those tips for bringing them to the tabletop, which is quite cool. Especially because it covers the various regions of Rohan during the period, so you can paint them up to match whichever way you want to go, which I think is quite nice. But yes, some fun stuff coming down the pipeline for the War of the Rohirrim. It's nice to see Middle-earth strategy battle games still getting a smattering of releases. I'm not necessarily poo-pooing the new models for War of the Rohirrim. I think they do the job. They match up really nicely to the War of the Rohirrim aesthetic. They work very well with the kind of look of the character from the film. So, you know, it's done the job on that side of things. Are they a patch on some of the older models? I would say no, but I do like the design, and I'm definitely going to pick up Helm Hammerhand because he's one of my favourite characters. So I'm going to pick him up, and I'm going to use him in my games for sure. I also quite like that he is very much in the same, almost the same pose as the old Forge World Resin version of him, although of course with the hammer rather than the sword across his chest, striking down. And then the on-foot version sort of similarly has a look to the statue from Helm's Deep in The Lord of the Rings. You could almost maybe even model it so the hand is holding the horn, and then maybe change the helmet by cutting off the spikes on the side of it, the horns. And then I think you could have a really fun version of him that echoes the statue from Helm's Deep in the original Lord of the Rings film, which would be quite fun. So yeah, some cool stuff there on that front for War of the Rohirrim. Don't normally do a video on a Tuesday, but this stuff popped up, so I thought I would dive in and have a look at it and share some thoughts on it alongside the artwork and of course the rules for Helm Hammerhand if you're interested in snapping that up as well. But yeah, I'll have a link down to the article below so you can go and check it out. Keep an eye for more stuff for Middle-earth strategy battle game in the near future. I'm sure we're going to be getting loads of additional updates as we move on. But yeah, like, share, subscribe. Tell me what you think of War of the Rohirrim and the new model for Helm. Drop it down in the comments below. And yeah, I'll move on and dive into another video. There'll be one tomorrow and definitely one on Saturday, as well as one on Sunday as well. Diving into either Middle-earth or Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So there'll be something for you, whichever way you swing. So yes, very cool. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you folks very, very soon. Bye for now.